they're always going to adapt and they're just going to execute. And that's the ones that are going to be always on the top, that they're willing to adapt. They're willing to, focus on the problems and change the problems. And it doesn't matter what meta is going to come at them because they know they're going to be at their A game. And when that comes out, they're going to be the best at it.
Welcome to the Alejandro Velasquez Show. This is the Alejandro Velasquez Show, where we talk about gaming, entrepreneurship, and family.
Welcome to the Alejandro Velasquez Show. In this episode, we're going to be talking about how gaming can help you in real life. And today I have a guest here named Matthew Iglesias. He's a social media manager for the Next Level Experience and also a gamer. How you doing?
Good, man, dude. I'm excited for this. This topic, I think, is a really important one because all the misconceptions around gaming, but, we're going to get into that.
Yeah, definitely. And gaming is something that is so important in right now because we can learn so much lessons from it. And I feel like people were always bashing upon it, but now it's opened up a lot of doors for a lot of people.
Absolutely. I mean, specifically with esports, and that's obviously the pinnacle, right, of the gaming industry is being a professional player. But even if you bring it back to just someone being able to just stream, right, and start streaming and start a YouTube channel and the opportunities that presented there, someone might say, oh, you're going to start a little YouTube channel. Yeah, okay, that's not going to go anywhere. 100%. But that's what you would have said to literally anybody who's huge now. You would have said that too. So it's opened up a huge opportunity there for someone to make a name for themselves.
Definitely the same thing in sports, right? When you go and you're like, okay, I'm going to be an NFL player. I'm going to be the best basketball player. And they're like, yeah, okay, you'll make it through high school and then you'll see where you go. Yeah. And those are some of the players that they doubt. They always doubt, and they, the pro players and the best players in basketball and football and soccer, whatever it may be, they didn't have a doubt in their mind that they were going to succeed because they put their mind to it and they did it. Ultimately, it was within them to prove everybody wrong and show what they got.
Yeah, 100%. And then like yourself, it's opened up an opportunity for people to make money, you with your wagers, right? People play for money, from Fortnite to and all the competitive games there that are mainstream. Even with smaller games, people will put money down, and a lot of it is skill based. It's mostly skill based. A lot of these games, obviously, there's a factor of luck, in most games. But if you're a good player, you can make a living off of. You could make a living off of playing, but most people aren't going to get to that level, but it could be a nice little side hustle. You know what I'm saying? Definitely. Playing wagers on the side. It's kind of like poker. Are you familiar with poker at all? Yeah, people say oh, poker's all luck, but it's how come the top players are consistently there, and how come you consistently win? It's because there's a level of skill.
Yeah, and I feel like people are like, oh, it's luck, and I'm like, is it really luck when I'm winning every time? And
Yeah.
when did it stop being luck?
Exactly. It's there has to be something, right? It's maybe I have a little bit of luck, but it's mostly that I'm good, that I've put in the time and etc. Which is, just like real life. We're talking about business, a career, a relationship, literally everything. It takes that that grind, that consistent practice, the studying that goes into becoming good enough to let alone let's not even talk about being competitive. And for money, just being good at the game and enjoying the game, you gotta put in that time to learn it and get good. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, just like a job. It's the same thing in real life. You want to get a job, you gotta work for it. You go through high school. Some people go to college, who get majors. And also, I feel like the thing about when we're talking about consistency, definitely what people kind of forget is that you don't always have to be the top of the top, because most of the time you won't win 10 out of 10 times. There's definitely some factors that you lose or you get unlucky or whatever it may be. But I feel like the most important thing is consistency, because just like you were saying about the poker game, they do lose sometimes, but they're always saying it's luck. But it's kind of when it's not luck, and that you've paid off your grind when you are consistent enough to be on the top 5, be the best in your job, be the best manager you could be the best gamer you could be, and whatever it may be, you have to be consistent with it.
Yeah, and I think someone watching this might say yeah, but if I want to learn that, why would I learn it playing video games? I could learn that doing something else. And I would say all right, that there is some validity to that point, because someone might say like, oh, if I'm gonna grind to learn something, why don't I grind on my job or whatever? However, I think the benefit that gaming has is like it's not just like about the grind. Like it's also you're having fun. Like video games are awesome. Like I thoroughly enjoy video games. Like they're a great like vehicle just to have fun, but there's also so many things that come with it that like it's like a 1-2 punch. Like it's so fun, but then it's also, when you really look at it, there's a lot of lessons that you could take away from it.
Yeah, 100%. I feel like there's so much things in video games, and I feel like people are like, okay, if I want to be good, you know, you play the game and stuff, but there's so much factors that, you know, pro players and people that play a game and that are just good in general have so much things and in their head when they're playing that they kind of don't even think about anymore. It's kind of just like brain, just your brain functioning without even you thinking about it.
Yeah, it's like muscle memory.
Yeah, muscle memory.
You just do something enough to where it's just like natural. You're just like doing it. You know
and
what I'm
my
saying?
dad, when I first started working, when I was typing, I probably took 2 classes or 1 class of typing. And through video games, I kind of remembered where the A key is, where the W key, where the Q key, where the R key, where the E key, and all of that. I kind of learned through it, and I got good at typing, and I could type pretty decently fast because I touched the keys so much.
Yeah.
So I also, like, my dad is like, wow, you're typing really good, and, you know, I have to write stuff, and I'm writing documents, and I actually hate writing. I write in script. And I don't like writing because my hand cramps up a lot. But I'm like, when I'm typing, I could write a whole page paper and I still could go for hours.
Yep. That's an interesting point. I actually never thought about that because as a console player and a controller player, I should say, you know, I've played on mouse and key, but like very little. But that's actually a great point. Like kids who are coming up like in 2020 who play mouse and keyboard, like when they become adults, you know, by the time they're adults, let's just say it's like 2035. If like a kid is like being born now, they're 15 to 20, like 2035, 2040. At that time, even now, a lot of jobs have typing and a computer involved. So if you're learning how to use the keyboard at a young age, like that's gonna be a skill that you don't have to learn when you're older. It's just, you just know.
And definitely because of the COVID stuff, now my whole thing is like they're ready for lockdown. When now they're using everything technology. Like teachers before, I knew teachers, they hated electronic. They're like, don't send me emails, turn it in class. I don't want none of this like electronic stuff. Now it's like we're full electronic. Now they're just like, I don't want to touch a piece of paper. They're like, no, I don't want to touch it. Everything's Google Classroom, emails, all of that. Now we have to, you know, type stuff. And that is a skill that I feel like is going to be really important now. You know, people also say that, you know, writing was a really good skill. It did help a lot, but now I think typing is going to be the new wave.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, like I said, even like now, like not even like with school, with from school to work, like computers are involved everywhere. So being able to type is really important. Yeah. I think another thing that I feel is one of the biggest things that you learn in gaming is like the strategy that goes into you being able to perform, right? 100%. Because if we're talking about any competitive game, whether it be, you know, a battle royale based game like Fortnite or Warzone, a competitive game like Overwatch or Rainbow Six, or any game like that, you have to go in with a strategy to perform, right? Because there's always a meta. 100%. Right? And then how you know, play with your team to execute that strategy, that's something that you have to go into the game with that in mind and execute that to perform, right? Yep. And so it's the same thing in real life. Like if you don't approach your life like with a conscious strategy, like you're putting yourself at a disadvantage, and the same thing in the game. So that's something that I feel like I've learned is not only like going and learning the strategy, but then executing the strategy.
Yeah, definitely. This is funny that you said that because I know a lot of people in the Fortnite community and just the comp community in general. They're like, okay, this meta, I don't like it. I'll try next season. And just for Fortnite, it's been like that. Some people always make excuses. They're like, okay, it'll be the next meta. It'll be the next season. It'll be the next year. It'll be the, 2 months from now or whatever. It'll be when this meta, stops and there's a new, better meta for me or something like that. It's always a joke in the comp scene because it's always saying like, okay, when is it gonna be your meta? Or it's
Yeah.
like, oh, it's your season. Is it gonna be your season?
Yeah.
But it's kind of like the top tier pros. It doesn't matter what meta it is. They're always going to adapt and they're just gonna execute. And that's the ones that are gonna be always on the top. That they're willing to adapt. They're willing to, focus on the problems and change the problems. And it doesn't matter what meta is gonna come at them because they know they're gonna be at their A game. And when that comes out, they're gonna be the best at it.
Yeah, I'll give you a great example. Like in back in like season like 1 to 3 of Warzone, RPGs was like a big part of the meta, right? Like everybody was running RPGs as a secondary. And at the time, like when Warzone first started, running a perk called Cold Blooded was the meta, right?
Yeah.
But then everybody, because the RPGs switched to EOD, and EOD is a perk like where you take less explosive damage.
Yeah.
So like it's the adaptability factor too, like seeing where the meta is going. And it's like, all right, if I don't like the meta, maybe it's like, back when like the pump was OP in Fortnite. It's like, all right, it's annoying, but how do I either use it or how do I work around it? How do I counter it? Like those are all things that you have to do to perform. And it's the same thing in real life.
Yeah, definitely. And I feel like the top tier pros are just the same thing, consistency. They are, no matter what's happening, they're consistent. It's not luck at this point. They're being consistent. They're paying off their grind. And when there's bad meta, they don't want it. Guess what? They're grinding even more. And not even, I feel like when people say grind, they're like, oh, you're just putting 24 hours. Not necessarily, because I knew people and my friends that only played 2 hours a day and were still better than me, because within those 2 hours, they didn't play casually. They played to win. They played out the strategies. They played out in their heads what they did wrong. They reviewed it. They recorded themselves doing what they did wrong and then fixed it. And, just have such a competitive mindset and having a mindset that I'm going to change my problems into, just winning.
I think it's about like going into it with a conscious approach. Like you can go and play like literally 10 to 12 hours a day. You can even play 10 to 12 hours a day of any competitive game. But if you're going into it like, all right, let's just have some fun, let me just play, you're probably going to lose a lot of your games because you're not going into it with like a conscious intention. Like when these pro players are getting on to play 8 to 10 hours a day, like they're going into it like with a conscious effort to perform. Like it's kind of like that, the saying about like, all right, like, if someone, let's say a construction worker, right? A construction worker is a hard worker. Like they work in the sun, they do a lot of hard work.
100%.
But it's a respectable, career, but like you're not gonna earn a lot of money doing that. Versus someone that like has like a really like high income skill, like a CEO or something like that. CEO. Theoretically, maybe they don't put in a lot of hard work. But in the time that they're in the office doing their job, like it's a lot of concentrated, like a conscious effort that's going into it. So it's not about like the amount of time, but it's about like the quality of the time that goes into it and like how, you know what I'm saying?
Just like my dad, he comes into the office and every single minute he's doing something productive. There's not one time that, he's slacking. And if there's 1 minute, literally, if there's 1 to 5 minutes, he's going to make that time worth his time.
Yep. Exactly.
He's not going to just waste the time and be like 5 minutes, be on his phone or something. He's going to write an email. He's going to talk to a client or talk to anybody that is valuable and that he needs to do something that improve his day, improve his work, and overall just help him be more consistent.
Yeah, and like that's exactly the connection. Like you learn that in gaming, and then it's the same lesson in real life. But I think you have to consciously make the connection. Because I think if you don't, like if you're not realizing like what you're learning, like it might not, like you might not get the full value from it. You know what I'm saying?
And I definitely feel like how you would get that is failure. And just like me when I had bad grades and kind of, I knew the mistake I was doing, but I literally didn't understand it until I was failing. Like I had a straight F. Yeah. And I was like, that's when I was like, okay, this is actually gonna go down. I was like, I'm actually gonna fail. And that's when it clicked in my brain. And then I was like, I was mentally beating myself up because I was like, I didn't learn. And I had every single sign pointing to me that I needed to fix this. And I never listened until it was like, okay, you're not going to learn this time. I'm gonna hit you harder. Not necessarily, but I'm going to break you down harder. And then if you don't learn that time, then I'll break you down even harder. And if you don't learn that time, then it just gets to the point where you're like, okay, at some point I'm going to learn it. And I better learn it better, because if not, I'm going to have another time in my life that it's going to be the same exact things. And I was like, just the failure, you need to learn from it, because there's always a lesson through failure.
Yeah, it's actually a great point that you bring that up, because one of the things that has influenced me like throughout all my gaming career, from playing Rainbow, playing Overwatch, playing COD, playing Fortnite, like what always made me like want to get better was when I wasn't doing well. Like I remember when I first started playing Warzone, like I wasn't getting any wins. Like I think I was like 100 games deep. I had not won a game yet, right? But then I was like, damn, like I want to win a game. And I started watching a ton of YouTube videos about how the top players play, all the like the strategies, how to rotate into the circle, like all the meta weapons. Like I started like watching a ton of videos. And then once I started doing that, I started winning. Yeah. And like, it's the same thing in real life. Like you have to like recognize your failure, right? And then be like, all right, how do I adapt? How do I get better? And then go to the best people and be like, all right, what are the best people doing? Like, what are the people in business? What are they doing? Like, that's why, like, you know, around, whenever you're around like a successful person, you always find them with the library. Why? Because those books have information from people who've done it before. But now for us in the gaming space, we have YouTube. We go on YouTube and we watch the top guys break down how they play, you know, why they play, and etc.
Yeah, and I definitely think when you know, people are streaming on Twitch or whatever, I always watch them, and I always watch these private matches, and you know, the best players. And it's funny because I got good at a certain game mode in a certain amount of time, literally just watching a person. And I was like, when I was doing my game, I was like, hey, let me try out what that person did. And I did it. And my friends were like, where'd you learn that? Like, how'd you do that move? And all that. They're like, that, I've never seen it before. And then I'm like, you know, something I got off from a stream or two. And then it was like weird, because then I'm like, wow, if you learn from the best of the best, then you become it. It's kind of what you surround yourself to. And I feel like the most important thing that I had a realization is one of my friends named Lewis. He was very good and he peaked. And meaning what peaked means is kind of you went into your full potential and you kind of couldn't get better in a way. In their mind, you physically and mentally kind of get to a point where you were just like, okay, I'm good. All right.
Thank you. I said bless you, my bad.
Yeah. So basically, he peaked and he thought he couldn't get better, and he was already getting, you know, mentally destroyed, because he's like, I'm not winning, but I'm not losing. And he's like, I can't get better. I'm surrounding myself with the same people, though. And he's beating the same people, but he's losing to better people. So what me and Lewis did is we got into a Discord with a bunch of pro players and for money and wagers. And as soon as I, you know, convinced him, because he was doing competitive, so I convinced him to do wagers, and he was like, I'll give it a try or two. And as soon as he went into the wager community, 10 times better. Now he has so much recognition. He got so much following and, you know, all of that. But besides like the clout and all of that, he kind of got so much better. Like just in his mind, he truly just got better, like in a span of 2 months. And of me helping him, you know, giving him my 2 cents, but and then also going against better players, he was like, he can't peak anymore because he's always versing better players, better players, better players. He's losing more, but he's destroying the people that he used to lose to. And I was like, now the people he used to lose to don't even want to fight him anymore. To a point where he's like, he looks like the best, but then there's always a bigger shark. So I feel like that you need to kind of surround yourself with the people that are better than you. Just like in business, my dad always says, surround yourself that people that want to succeed in life, and surround yourself between men that are going to push your limits. Yeah,
like he always says, proximity is power. Like the people that you're around are going to like either push you to go to your next level, or gonna drag you down like to become a lesser version. It's kind of like the saying, would you rather be a whale in a pond or a fish, you know, in the ocean, right? So like someone might say like, yeah, like I would rather be, you know, a whale in a pond. I would rather be a great player in a room with a bunch of trash players because I feel great about myself, right? But if you're the fish in a space with guys who are bigger than you might have to, leave the ego at the door a little bit because you might lose a couple times at first, but it's going to push you to have to get better. And that's what it's all about. If you just get comfortable with, all right, I'm just destroying these guys who, aren't too good. I'm going to just enjoy my win and move on. You're not going to really get much better. And you know what I'm saying? Like if you just take that, like, that satisfaction and you just like, all right, I'm good. And the same thing in real life. If you become satisfied where you're at, like, you stunt your growth.
Yeah, and I feel like one thing that you should take away from this is the comfortability. And kind of when you are comfortable, you know that you are not improving. When you're like, when I wrote my book, the first chapter or one of the chapters in the book, I wrote that being comfortable destroys your growth. And what I saw was that me being comfortable didn't help me become better, and actually slowly declined me to become worse. Because one, I wasn't getting any better and I was versing the same people, so I knew how they played. So when I was versing other people, I was using the same strategy that I used to beat the other person, but he's a completely different person. New strategies, fresh blood and all of that. So it's kind of like a different mental game because you're like, okay, you think you're the best and you in your mind you're getting ego from these trash players. But then when you verse a really good player, you're like, okay, I've never played this guy. I've never had a strategy, and he's destroying me right now. And then you kind of see why you're doing that.
Yep. And that kind of makes me think about, like, tilt, right? Because, like, when I've seen this so many times, like, when a good player, right, is smoking, like, the trash players, right? And then when he plays someone either at his level or better, gets super tilted. He's like, yo, I don't want to play this anymore. I'm getting off. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, because they're so used to, like, playing with those, like, worst players. Like, for me, my main, like, group of friends that I play with, like, in COD, there's skill-based matchmaking, right? So, like, their KDs are lower than mine. So, like, when I play with them, I get put in lobbies with worse players. So I'm like, oh, snap, I'm doing good, like, because I'm playing against worse players. But I try to balance it out because I'm conscious about it. I try to balance it out by then going and playing with people who have high KDs. So I could play against the better players, so I could be like, okay, let me check myself, because I need to control, like, my own tilt. Because you could get tilted negatively and get pissed. You could also get tilted the other way where you get arrogant.
Yeah, definitely. And I feel like with tilts, you need to kind of check yourself and make sure that, one, you're not getting an ego, and one, that you are kind of getting to the point where you don't have fun anymore. And I feel like when it comes to tilt, it happens in a competitive aspect mostly. I've seen it, maybe some casual. But in a competitive aspect, they get tilted because they want to be the best and they want to prove themselves. And then when they don't, they kind of are, their egos are shattered. But when it comes to tilt, you need to adapt and, most likely just take a step back and realize that you are not the best, but you are also not the worst, and that you could always improve. There's always room for improvement. Even the best players, they always watch, these, Bugha and all of that, and all the pro players from Fortnite, they always watch, smaller players that is like, oh, I've never seen that before. What was that? And it's kind of like the smaller players, there's always, everyone could get their 2 cents. You know what I'm saying? And that 2 cents could always become $1. And, what is it called? That,
like the saying?
Yeah, that saying is kind of, like weird for me in a way because people are like, oh, I don't want your 2 cents. And I'm like, it's different because then the 2 cents could build up to something more.
So
exactly. It's kind of like you need to realize that you are not going to be, the biggest person, and you're not going to be the best person. Or when it comes to the biggest person during business, be the biggest CEO or the best CEO and be the best Fortnite player. You're always not going to be the best Fortnite player because there's somebody else out there that is, grinding harder than you, not necessarily making more money than you, not necessarily, winning as much, but they are better in a, smarter or mechanically and stuff like that. It comes to, they have better aspects and that you could always improve on.
A really good way that I like to deal with tilt is by focusing on how could I have done better there versus like, oh my God, like I lost. Like literally, like this happened to me like 2 days ago. I was playing a Warzone game. I was top 5. And then I hear a guy open a box, right? To my right. And I'm like, okay, this is easy. I'm about to just kill this dude and be top 4. Like I was so confident I was going to win that game. Next thing I know, like, he turns the corner, fries me, and I was like, I literally like face palmed. I was like this, and I was like, but then I focused. I was like, all right, what could I have done better there? Like, and I started thinking of all the things I could have done better, and like that makes me better for the next game.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing like in life. Like when you're running, like for example, an ad campaign. Like to be contextual to me, like if ads don't work, like you could be like, damn, like we spent this amount of money, blah blah blah, and just like be so stressed about it, or you could be like, all right, the copy could have been better. Maybe we could have done something different with the funnel. Maybe we could have used a different creative, like, and just focus about all things you could have done differently for the next time. Because trust me, I've seen so many of my friends get so caught up in being so pissed about losing, and they just focus on the problem, and then eventually it makes them actually play worse.
Yeah, definitely for the next game, because then they start getting mad at every little thing.
Yeah, exactly. Like every little thing, they're like start to get so pissed, and then that just drags down the team. Because the tilt isn't just about you; it's about your team as well. Because your team will see how you're handling your emotions, and then it'll bleed onto them, which just goes into like being a leader, which is like the same thing when you're leading, actual people in person, an actual team.
Definitely. This has been such a valuable conversation, but I actually have one question for you. Cool. So the question is if you would tell somebody, like a teenager, and the parents or somebody thought they were doubting them, and he thought that he was wasting his time and thinks that he's wasting his time, what is one piece of advice you would give to him? Yeah,
so what I would say is, well, number one, like, why do you play? Like, if you love playing games and it's super fun for you, then that's enough reason right there. But then the second thing is to be conscious about it at the same time. So while you love it playing games, also start thinking about some things we talked about. Managing your tilt, going into the game with a strategy, managing your team. Because those are the things while you're playing and you're enjoying playing, you start to build those skills of learning strategy, applying strategy, managing your emotions, being able to, facilitate amongst your team. Like, all right, you do this role, hey, we need this. And you start to learn those skills that then, factor into your real life. So if you love playing games, you feel a little like, you feel a little guilty, maybe a little shameful, like maybe I'm wasting my time. Listen, you're not. Everybody, I think, loves to do certain things that maybe to the masses look like a waste of time, but in reality, if you're conscious about it, you can pull away so many lessons from just about anything. Thank you for watching the Alejandro Vlasic Show. And if you received any value from this episode, make sure to comment, subscribe, and like.
Thank you for tuning into the show. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share.